With a name like the Evil Queen, it's understandable to think that she was the villain in Snow White's story, but it turns out she might have just been a puppet being controlled by a much more evil force. The Evil Queen acted out of vanity and jealousy when she tried to get rid of her stepchild. Still, after looking into her backstory, it's clear that she didn't act out of her own volition. In fact, it seems like it was her father who was mistreating and manipulating the Queen from behind the scenes the entire time. Everyone knows the story of the Evil Queen and her magic mirror on the wall, who told her she was the fairest of them all. But many don't realize that the Queen had a much deeper relationship with her mirror than Disney first let on. When these characters were adapted by Disney in 1937, the mirror that the Evil Queen used to constantly measure her beauty compared to the rest of the kingdom was simply viewed as a magic mirror made out of fairy tale magic. It wasn't until Serena Valentino illustrated the Evil Queen's origin story that the truth was revealed about who the mirror really was and how closely connected it was to Disney's villain Queen. You see, according to Serena's novel, Fairest of All, A Tale of the Wicked Queen, the face that she saw in the magic mirror was none other than her father's, whom she believed was dead. Now, you might think that this would be a happy reunion for the Evil Queen and her dad, but in the book, it was something that haunted the Queen. She initially didn't like the sight of her father in the mirror because she'd already tried so hard to escape his wicked ways and mistreatment. But once the Evil Queen realized that she was the one in control, she slowly warmed up to him. However, after taking another look at their relationship, there's a good chance that the Queen's father was in control all along, using his daughter's insecurities to manipulate her into becoming the sinister villain Disney made her out to be. And the Queen's father would know all about her insecurities, especially since he was the one who influenced, if not created them. You see, it all goes back to the Queen's childhood before she met her husband, Snow White's father. Even though Valentino's novel opened on the day that the Queen officially married the king, the book still managed to give a lot of insight into what life was like growing up with her father. The Queen's father was a well-respected man in the area and was known for his craft as a mirror maker. And before his daughter was born, it's believed that he was happily married to his wife, whom he thought was truly beautiful. Sadly, though, the Queen never got to know her mother because Valentino writes that she died during labor, which led the mirror maker to live his life in resentment of his daughter, whom he believed killed his wife. And as you can probably imagine, that level of resentment that the mirror maker felt didn't lead to a healthy environment for the Queen to grow up in. In fact, it was arguably the first stage of a long-running manipulation tactic that the mirror maker used on his daughter when she eventually became queen. You see, according to Fairest of All, the Queen's father despised her and constantly reminded his daughter that he believed she was useless. According to the book, he would tell the Queen she was ugly and had her believe that she was truly a horrible person for killing her mother, when in reality it was not the Queen's choice to be born. This likely led to a lot of the insecurities that the Queen felt as she grew up. Think about it, even in Disney's Snow White, the Evil Queen needed constant affirmation that she was beautiful. And though Disney made it seem like her need to be beautiful came from her own vanity, there's a good chance that it actually stemmed from these insecurities that were hammered into her mind by her father. The very man that was supposed to raise her and keep her safe made the Queen feel more unwanted than anyone ever had. It was lucky for her that she wouldn't have to spend her entire life with him, or so she thought. As readers would learn, the Queen could not escape her father's judgment, and at the end of the day, his knowledge of that might have allowed him to manipulate the Queen into becoming the wicked villain that she was in Disney's Snow White. Much like most main characters in the Disney universe, the Evil Queen was almost lucky enough to receive her happily ever after. However, it was ripped away by none other than her father, who continued to haunt her long after his death. You see, one day while he was out riding his horse, the Queen met the mirror maker's daughter and immediately fell in love with her, at least according to Fairest of All. The pair quickly got to know each other, and as mentioned before, the book actually opened on their wedding day. However, the book also noted that the Queen's father never got to see his daughter marry the king because shortly before their wedding, he passed away from an unknown cause. Now, his death wasn't questioned much by the Queen, considering the fact that she likely couldn't be bothered, but as a nice gift for his wife, Valentino wrote that the king got her something special. On their wedding day, the Queen was presented with a mirror that the king had ordered from the mirror maker's workshop. This was meant to be a loving gesture and a way for the Queen to remember her late father. And although the Queen was described as being overwhelmed with joy, Valentino also noted that the mirror made her feel uneasy. and there was a good reason for that, which could indicate her father's role in turning her into the villainous evil queen that Disney fans know her to be. The queen had started to live what seemed to be a happy life, and according to Valentino's novel, she was even very friendly with Snow White. In fact, the book described the two as being very close to each other, so close in fact that they would often confide in one another when their kingdom inevitably went to war, which meant that the king was not around as often. Eventually, that all changed when the king was said to have died in battle. The king's death brought grief down upon his kingdom, and during that time, the queen began to shut everyone out, including Snow White. And when the king's cousins, a trio of witches named the Odd Sisters, showed up and appeared to upset Snow White, the queen even kicked them out. Just like that, according to the book, everything in the queen's life had practically gone into turmoil. The brief happiness that she felt was entirely stripped away from her, which set up the perfect opportunity for her to be manipulated by someone who held more resentment toward the queen than any parent should toward their child. You see, at this point in the book, the queen woke up one morning and noticed the mirror her father made was now sitting at the foot of her bed. This was odd because she had hidden it away after her wedding due to an uneasy feeling it gave her. According to the book, the queen decided to unwrap the mirror, and when she looked into it, she saw a face that wasn't hers but was still familiar. And as mentioned before, it turned out to be the face of her dead father who had come back to haunt her, although the queen didn't realize that. In fact, according to Valentino's book, the queen believed that her father was trapped inside the mirror as her slave, when in reality the book implies that he was trapped inside the mirror by the Odd Sisters, who have proven themselves to be the true villain makers of Disney, according to Valentino. This implies that the mirror maker's consciousness was trapped inside the mirror as a manipulation tactic rather than as a punishment for the way he treated the queen when she was growing up. So while the queen thought she was in charge and her father was her slave, she was being pushed closer and closer to her villainous ways. As revealing himself as her servant, the queen's father told her that he could see anything and everything throughout the entire land, and he was forced to answer any question that she asked. And when the time came, the queen forced her father to answer a question that she already knew the answer to. She asked him if she was beautiful. More specifically, she asked him if she was the fairest of them all, to which he initially replied by telling her that she was. But this was likely just to give the queen a false sense of security that he would soon rip away in order to manipulate her. According to the novel, she would ask him every single day if she was the fairest in the land, and every day the mirror would tell her that she was, until one day he didn't. At first, it started with the queen's handmaiden Verona, who the mirror claimed was fairer than the queen herself, but eventually the answer became the queen's stepdaughter, Snow White. And in both events, the queen's father got what he wanted. According to the book, in the handmaiden's case, the queen became so full of rage that she banished Verona and forced her to serve a prince in a faraway kingdom. And as for Snow White, well, you know that story. The queen couldn't stand that her stepdaughter was considered more beautiful than she was and fed her a poisoned apple. What's really interesting about the insight that Valentino gave readers when she explained that the face in the mirror was actually the queen's father is that it really could imply that the mirror maker manipulated the queen into becoming evil. Think about it. He truly hated his daughter after his wife died, and he knew the exact insecurities to target which would drive her mad. What do you think about the evil queen's father, though? Was he the true villain of the evil queen's story, working behind the scenes to ruin her life? Let us know in the comments below.